Contra is the sophomore studio album by famed band from the East Coast, Vampire Weekend. This album recently had its 15-year anniversary, so let's see if it still holds up all these years later, because we tend to look back more fondly on music from that era than maybe how good it really was. You're watching Tumblr Retrospective on The Current. I am currently revisiting a lot of the albums that were popular on Tumblr, so if you're interested in that, please subscribe to my channel. And I'm also going to be working on a longer form video, so please stay tuned for that. Also, just a heads up, I don't have a script for this video. I'm still kind of trying to find my footing in the way I record videos. Some of the feedback that I've gotten from people close to me is that I'm not showing my personality as much when I'm making these videos. So I thought I'd try something different for this album. My videos about men generally get less views anyway. So to hell with it. Let's see how it goes. Vampire Weekend is a 4-piece band from New York City, or really formed in New York City. Consisted of lead vocalist and guitarist Ezra Koenig, multi-instrumentalist Rostam Batmanglitch. I know I'm doing a huge disservice to his surname, but I know he's from Iran, so I just could not find the proper pronunciation for his surname. So I would like to apologize in advance. I did actually try. Then we have drummer Chris Thompson and bassist Chris Bio. Batmanglitch departed the group in early 2016, but has continued occasionally to contribute to subsequent albums as a songwriter, producer, and musician. This album came out on the 11th of January in 2010. Now, and I just want to paint a really specific picture for you. It is the height of the millennial age. The most popular website to get your fashion inspiration was probably We Heart It or Lookbook. Topshop was everything. We were in the time of tribal print and boat shoes. Hence came Vampire Weekend, which has been described by Nardwuar as polite punk, which I think is very fitting. You could also just call it ska. But yeah, this was just a very interesting time. It was the comeuppance of Tumblr. It was the comeuppance of MySpace, of course. Vampire Weekend also utilized that website and even released some of their songs for free to promote this album. But yeah, it was basically the time of Visco Girls before Visco Girls. There was this type of aesthetic that was super popular on Tumblr in particular, with boat shoes, polos, old money aesthetic. Again, Lana Del Rey was forming her aesthetic around this time. And it definitely goes paired with some of the other very early albums that were popular on Tumblr, like the MGMT debut album, the XX albums, Torches by Foster the People. I remember a specific picture, I can probably find it on my old blog, where it was literally all of those albums next to each other. And it was my proper first introduction to indie music. Oh, and I can't forget Tourist History by Two Door Cinema Club. Those albums, including this one, all existed in this wonderful harmony of indie rock that was super popular around the 2010s and was especially coming from New York City. Other bands like The Strokes definitely fit into that image as well. But yeah, it was just a different time. Like, bands could get #1 albums, including this one. This album hit #1 on the albums chart. So the one time I actually have an album cover that has a backstory, I forget to talk about it. Very typical, so here I am the next day explaining it. The album cover has a headshot picture of the model Ann Kirsten Kennis taken in 1983. It was actually sold to the band for $5,000 by the photographer Todd Brody. Ann Kirsten Kennis had actually not consented to her picture being used for the album cover, and her daughter had actually alerted her to her picture being used. Kennis then sued the band, and eventually it was settled and an undisclosed amount of money was paid. And I'm actually surprised that they were allowed to keep the image for the album cover, because it must have been quite a big sum of money that especially the record label agreed to as well. So that's that crazy album cover story. Unsentimental. Let's get into the music. Okay, so I personally really loved revisiting this album because it is a bit nostalgic for me. is a bit nostalgic. It's gonna be the first time that I feel like I've said that. Maybe I said that during the neighborhood video as well, but I was quite young when I was starting to get into music like this. I think I was like 14 because I did this work placement that you do in school. I worked at a library, but the library had a CD and music section. So this is the way that I would get my music because LimeWire had stopped existing and I needed a way to listen to music legally. So because I had this voluntary job that I was doing for school, I could fish out all of these albums from their amazing selection, and they would have new albums coming in as well. And I remember I did this job for longer than I needed to, so I had access to music for quite a long time, and that's how I had found out about Vampire Weekend, or that was the era that I found out about Vampire Weekend, and I would rip their CDs from the music library, and that's how I would listen to them. So in general, it just reminds me of that time. I've heard some people say that it's an autumn album. To me, it's a spring album. It's a morning album. It's an album that you put on a sunny morning where you're getting your coffee, you're going to work, you can taste the fresh air of spring. And yeah, just in general, this album is a very fun listen. It only has 10 tracks. The consistency of the songs and how they flow into each other is a very pleasant listen. There is only a few songs on here that I was kind of rediscovering because I didn't like them as much when I was younger. Again, forgive me. I was literally 12. 12, 13, 14. I was really young, right? So the main singles off of this album were Horchata and Cousins. Cousins has a music video that is very reminiscent of the OK Go videos that were very popular at the time. And you could definitely tell that the music industry was starting to grapple with this force that is the internet and trying to incorporate and live with that. So this was definitely released before the internet had a huge part in how music was being recorded, how music was being released, how music was functioning alongside the internet. The internet was very much an afterthought. But yeah, in general, this album takes a lot of influence from African music. And now, I just want to clarify, I really wanted to be specific in what country from Africa, but it was generally really hard. It's just not what you call this genre of music. And if you're interested, I would definitely recommend reading the Wikipedia article for African music, because there it is definitely more specific in what kinds of countries it's from, what it's borrowing from. So yeah, I will just be saying African music if I refer to it again. However, I do know that Africa is a continent. It has multiple countries. So just bear with me there. So this album just in general takes a lot of inspiration from polyrhythms, from African music. It has some syncopated parts, but it is also very interesting to me how this album is so Mozart. In a way, it's definitely because there's lots of piano leads that are very dainty and go up and then they go down again. It almost makes you feel like you are listening to Mozart in the modern day, which is very fitting because for their music video for Holiday, they had actually made an introduction to the world in wigs and regal costumes. In general, I did really like revisiting this album again because I'm a huge indie rock fan, especially from around that time. My favorite songs are definitely Horchata, White Sky, Holiday, Run, Cousins, Giving Up the Gun. Those are the best songs of the album, half of this album, but in general, it's just a good album. It's a fun listen. And if you are looking to get into indie music from the early 2010s, this is definitely a good start. It could definitely get a little bit confusing sometimes, like on songs such as California English, where its BPM is very high. It might be a little bit tough to listen to for some people. And what I also thought was very interesting is Ezra Koenig has this kind of cadence to his voice where you can't really understand what he's saying. It was like Scissorhands before SZA, right? And that's especially the case on this California English song. And yeah, what's also interesting about this album is how the lyrical collage definitely emits something that is so upper class New York. I remember around the time people were criticizing Vampire Weekend for honing this aesthetic that was very much college kid, old money, a little bit snobbish almost. And you can definitely hear in the type of words that they're choosing that it's a little bit elitist. Do you know what I mean? there was definitely some criticism to the band around that time, saying that, they were acting like they were better than everyone. In general, I just don't really have that much to say about this album, because I revisit this album sometimes. Comes up, I definitely play it when, spring comes around, and I'm like, ooh, I start hearing Diplomat Son in the back of my head. That as well, there's so many catchy songs on this album. Like, be prepared, because there was a lot of times when I was listening to this album and I did not really think of any other music the whole time that I was listening to this album for this video. I would just catch myself doing something and just going, he was a diplomat son, he was 81. Like, it's just catchy, it's fun. No skip, I would say. Yeah, it's a no skip album. Where is Vampire Weekend now? And I just want to share something sad that I had learned about this album. So, the young ones might not know, but the ones that are my age will probably know of a young lady called Tavi Gevinson. And Tavi Gevinson was dating Ezra Koenig, which I did not know. I did not know that around the time when I was listening to this album. I did not know up until I started doing research for this video. Now, apparently, Tavi Gevinson was 18 and Ezra Koenig was 30. So that's a little bit, I was doing research for this video on TikTok. Like, you just have to do that. You have to be with the people, you have to hear what they have to say. And I saw this video where someone was highlighting the most hated men in the music industry, and Ezra Koenig was one of the videos. And again, this is all alleged. Tavi Gevinson wrote this in a article that she wrote about Britney Spears. And though she does not name her abuser, a lot of people will connect the dots and think about, that might have been Ezra Koenig. So of course that's a little bit disappointing. Rustam Batmanglitch has of course left the band since, and Vampire Weekend did release a new album called Only God Is Above Us. Yeah, Only God Was Above Us last year in April 2024. And here on Wikipedia it says universal acclaim. I don't know who they asked. I personally did not like it, and ever since Rustam had left the band, I definitely noticed his absence. Rustam has since collaborated with the likes of Clairo and is very active in the music industry. He's very talented, and he definitely carried Vampire Weekend on his back. Like, I hope his back is okay. So let me just do a cheeky Google search for Vampire Weekend and see what comes up. First headline, already reflecting on Contra. Oh, here. Vampire Weekend announced spring 2025 North American tour dates. On my side of the internet that I frequent, I never hear about Vampire Weekend anymore. Nobody's talking about them. And that's how I want to close off on this video. Something that I have noticed as I was making these videos. If you think about any artist or any person that was popular 10, 15 years ago, and you ask yourself, what happened to them? I never hear about that person anymore. I wonder what they're up to. How come people don't talk about them? It has been so long. People used to talk about them so much. Why don't they anymore? It is probably 9 times out of 10, it is because they got cancelled. And the cancelled train did not even hit the mainstream. But then those people that hopped on the cancel train are also the people who would usually be the early adopters in the trend cycle. So that's why it just never gets carried on into the mainstream anymore. Just my theory. That's a theory that I wanted to leave you with. So I hope you enjoyed this shorter video about Contra by Vampire Weekend. Yes, separate the art from the artist if you want, or don't if you don't want to. My approach to separating the art from the artist is it generally only applies if I had listened to the music before the cancellation happened, because then I can just think about my own memories that I made separate from the artist. So before any of that stuff was happening, or I didn't know about it before I knew about all the bad stuff happening. And then you can form your own memories attached to the music, and then you can listen to the music again thinking about those good times and not thinking about what the artist did or hasn't done. But that's just my personal approach. I'm not telling you how to listen to music, and if you don't want to listen to Vampire Weekend anymore, be my guest. I am not forcing you to do that. But anyway, so thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed today's Tumblr retrospective. Please tune in again next week. And I just want to very quickly, my camera battery is flashing, very quickly discuss with you that I'm thinking about changing the upload day, because I just noticed it's not really working in my schedule. So yeah, let me know when you watch videos. Do you watch them on the weekend, or do you watch them any day of the week? Because I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I would love for you to tune in next week. Mwah! Peace.